They arrived on the shores of the Philippines not as conquerors, but as survivors. Fleeing war and persecution, they sought refuge in a land of strangers. You know the familiar names that built empires of banking, retail, and industry in the Philippines. But what if I told you that the very foundations of modern Philippine commerce were laid by a handful of families whose story has been all but forgotten? These are the stories of 10 pioneering Jewish families who built business empires from nothing. They would go on to shape the nation's economy and culture in ways we still feel today. This is the hidden history of their struggle, their success, and their incredible legacy. When you think about what made the modern Philippines, a few threads come to mind: Spain, America, China, and its own vibrant indigenous cultures. But there's another thread, one less visible but just as crucial, stitched into the fabric of its commerce and society. It's the story of a small but extraordinarily resilient group, the Jewish people. Their journey to the archipelago wasn't one of grand design, but of quiet desperation and tenacious hope. Long before the 20th century, the first Jewish presence in the Philippines can be traced to the 16th century, during the Spanish Inquisition. These were the Marranos, or conversos, Jews forced to convert to Christianity, who secretly practiced their faith. The first recorded instance involves two brothers, Jorge and Domingo Rodriguez, who arrived in the 1590s. They were tried and convicted by the Inquisition in Mexico, since no such tribunal existed in Manila. For centuries, Spanish law made an organized Jewish community impossible, leaving their presence scattered and secret. Everything changed in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The opening of the Suez Canal in 1869 created a direct trade route between Europe and Asia. At the same time, the switch from Spanish to American rule in 1898 brought a new era of religious freedom and economic opportunity. The Philippines, with its strategic location, became a beacon for a new kind of pioneer. These weren't just businessmen looking for profit. Many were refugees, literally running for their lives. They fled the Franco-Prussian War, the Bolshevik Revolution, and, most consequentially, the rising tide of Nazism in Europe. They arrived in Manila and found a culture known for its innate hospitality, a people who, despite their own struggles, possessed a deep capacity for empathy. In this fertile environment, a handful of Jewish families put down roots. They were entrepreneurs, innovators, and philanthropists. They didn't just build businesses, they built communities. And in the nation's darkest hour, they would play a key role in a little-known story of heroism, transforming their adopted home into a sanctuary for those fleeing the Holocaust. This is the story of 10 of those pioneering families. We'll count them down, from the figures who sustained the community to the titans who redefined an entire nation's commerce. Their legacies aren't just in the companies they founded, but in the spirit of resilience they embedded into the heart of the Philippines. Number 10. The Hyman family. Our countdown begins with a family that represents the many threads of Manila's early Jewish community, the Hyman family, led by patriarch Julius Hyman. Arriving in the early 20th century, the Hymans were part of a growing, cosmopolitan Jewish population that numbered around 500 people by 1936. This community was a diverse mix of nationalities, American, European, and Middle Eastern, and was known for its secular, business-oriented mindset. Unlike some families on our list who built massive empires, the Hyman family's contribution was more foundational. They were merchants, part of a network of importers and traders vital to Manila's economic lifeblood. In an era before giant conglomerates, it was families like the Hymans who kept goods flowing, understood the dance of supply and demand, and helped establish Manila as a key commercial hub in Southeast Asia. Their story isn't one of dramatic firsts, but of the steady, essential work of building a commercial society. They operated in a Manila that was rapidly modernizing under American influence. On the bustling Escolta Street and in the surrounding districts, Jewish merchants like the Hymans established their presence, building relationships with Filipino, American, Spanish, and Chinese business communities. The Hyman family's impact is a great example of the collective contribution of the broader Jewish community. While they may not have built the grandest department stores, their daily work in trade and commerce laid the groundwork for larger enterprises. They were part of the critical mass that made the Jewish community a respected part of Manila's social and economic structure. Their legacy is a reminder that history isn't only shaped by towering figures, but also by the cumulative efforts of families who, through quiet industry, create the ecosystem for growth. The Hyman family represents the everyday entrepreneurs who chose the Philippines as their home, contributing to its economic vitality and helping build a stable community that would later perform incredible acts of humanitarianism. Number 9. The Ephraim family. The story of the Ephraim family is one of the most dramatic chapters in the history of Jewish migration to the Philippines. They arrived in 1938 not as entrepreneurs seeking opportunity, but as refugees fleeing for their very lives. Their journey was part of a desperate wave of immigration as the world was closing its doors to the Jews of Europe. The rise of Nazi Germany had unleashed a storm of persecution, and the Ephraims were among the fortunate few who found a safe harbor in the distant Philippines. They arrived in coincidence with a moment of profound moral courage in Philippine history. The Jewish community in Manila, though small, was keenly aware of the Nazi threat. Frank Ephraim, a member of the family, would later become a crucial chronicler of this period, compiling his own accounts and those of other refugees in his powerful book, Escape to Manila, From Nazi Tyranny to Japanese Terror. His work ensures that this unique story of rescue is not forgotten. The Ephraims and their fellow refugees, known as Manilaners, weren't just passive recipients of aid. They were professionals, intellectuals, and artists who brought with them a wealth of cultural and intellectual capital. They contributed to the life of Manila as doctors, academics, musicians, and entrepreneurs, enriching the cultural fabric of an already cosmopolitan city. The Ephraim family story is a powerful testament to the resilience of the human spirit. After escaping Nazism, they faced another ordeal with the Japanese occupation of the Philippines. In a strange twist of fate, German and Austrian Jewish refugees were often considered Germans by the Japanese and were thus spared internment, unlike their American and Allied counterparts. Still, they endured the hardships of war, and tragically, about 67 German Jewish refugees were killed during the brutal Battle of Manila in 1945. The legacy of the Ephraim family and of all the Manilaners is twofold. First, it's a legacy of survival and gratitude, a story of a people who found shelter when none was available elsewhere. Second, it's a story of contribution. They didn't just take refuge, they became an integral part of Philippine society. Their story is a critical reminder of the Philippines' humanitarian tradition, a moment when the nation opened its doors and saved over 1,000 lives.
Number 8. Joseph Sizner. While many names on this list built commercial empires, the legacy of Joseph Sizner is built on something just as vital: the preservation of faith and community. In the early 20th century, as Manila's Jewish population grew, so did the need for formal religious institutions. Joseph Sizner became a cornerstone of this spiritual life as the caretaker of Temple Emil and Backrack Hall. Temple Emil was the heart of the Manila Jewish community. Consecrated in 1924 on Taft Avenue, it was the first synagogue ever built in the Philippines. Its construction was largely financed by the magnate Emil Backrack, but it was men like Joseph Sizner who gave it a soul. He was more than a caretaker of the building, he was a custodian of Jewish tradition in a community of diverse nationalities and varying religious observance. Sizner's dedication became profoundly important during the community's most challenging times. He helped support the influx of Jewish refugees in the late 1930s, ensuring the synagogue was a welcoming place. When the Japanese occupied the Philippines, Temple Emil, a symbol of their identity, was desecrated by troops who used it as an ammunition dump. It was during these dark times that Seisner's commitment was most tested and most vital. The tragic climax came during the Battle of Manila in 1945. The ammunition stored inside Temple Emil ignited, and the synagogue, along with the adjacent Backrack Hall, was blown up and burned to the ground. It was a devastating blow. The only synagogue on American-controlled territory destroyed during World War II was gone. Yet the spirit that Joseph Seisner helped nurture didn't die. After the war, the community rallied. With help from the U.S. Army and prominent families, the synagogue was rebuilt in 1947. It was eventually relocated to Makati in 1982, where it was renamed Beit Yaakov, and the social hall was named Backrack Hall to honor the original. Joseph Seisner's legacy isn't measured in profits, but in the survival of a community's soul. He represents the quiet, steadfast dedication required to sustain an identity in a foreign land, ensuring that even when their spiritual home was destroyed, the community's foundation was strong enough to rebuild. Number 7. The Morton I. Netzorg family. The story of the Netzorg family adds a unique dimension to the Jewish influence in the Philippines, the power of education and intellectual capital. Morton I. Netzorg and his wife Catherine arrived from the United States in 1911. They weren't merchants or industrialists, they were educators, part of the Thomasites, the pioneering group of American teachers sent to establish a new public school system. This mission placed them at the heart of the American colonial project. The Netzorgs played a direct role in this transformation, teaching the children of Manila's most influential families. Their work went beyond the classroom. They were cultural ambassadors. Their home became a hub for the growing Jewish community, and they were among the generous contributors to the establishment of Temple Emil. While Morton I. Netzorg laid the family's legacy in education, his son, Morton Jacob Netzorg, known as Jock, became its most prominent chronicler. Born in the Philippines in 1912, Jock grew up with a deep, intimate understanding of the country. He was the first to have a bar mitzvah at the newly constructed Temple Emil and later taught at its Sunday school, embodying the continuity of the community his parents helped build. Jock's most enduring contribution, however, was as a historian and book dealer. After leaving the Philippines, he and his wife established the Cellar Bookshop in Detroit, which became a world-renowned source for Filipinanya, books, maps, and documents related to the Philippines. He painstakingly collected and preserved vast amounts of material, especially focusing on the American period and World War II. His annotated bibliography, The Philippines in World War II and to Independence, remains essential resources for historians today. The Netzorg family's legacy shows that shaping a nation isn't limited to commerce. Through education, they influenced a generation of Filipino leaders. Through historical preservation, they ensured that the nation's complex story would not be lost. Morton I. Netzorg helped build the minds of the future, while his son Jock dedicated his life to preserving the memory of the past. Number 6. The Weil family. The story of the Weil family, particularly Charles Weil, is inseparable from the success of the most iconic Jewish-founded enterprise in the Philippines, La Estrella del Norte. The Weils represent a crucial element in any family dynasty, the ability to ensure continuity beyond the first generation of founders. The Weils entered the scene after the untimely death of Adolphe Levy in 1888, one of the original 3 Levy brothers who had founded the business. Adolphe, the visionary founder, passed away at just 39, a moment that could have spelled the end for the young enterprise. It was at this critical point that Charles Weil, a relative of the Levys, stepped in to manage La Estrella del Norte alongside the remaining brothers. Under this new leadership, La Estrella del Norte didn't just survive, it thrived. The Weils, together with the Levys, steered the company from being just a jewelry and perfume store into a purveyor of modernity itself. Their management ensured the business remained at the cutting edge of technology and consumer desire. While the Levys had laid the foundation, continued leadership from figures like Charles Weil propelled the company to new heights. The Weil family's role highlights the importance of professional management and family succession in building a lasting commercial empire. They were not merely caretakers, they were active participants in the firm's growth. Their stewardship saw the company introduce a series of technological marvels to the islands, forever changing the cultural landscape. The legacy of the Weil family is one of skillful continuation. They demonstrate that a dynasty is not just about a single charismatic founder, but about the network of capable family members who sustain the vision. In the grand story of Jewish business in the Philippines, the Weils are a testament to the quiet, steadfast dedication required to sustain an enduring institution.
Number 5. Isaac Bok. In the landscape of early 20th century Manila, a city awakening to modern consumerism, Isaac Bok stands out as a true pioneer. While other merchants were content with small shops, Bok envisioned something grander, something that would fundamentally change how Filipinos shopped. His contribution was singular and transformative. He established Manila's first true department store. Arriving in the Philippines in the early 1900s, Bok was part of the wave of American Jewish entrepreneurs who saw immense potential in the new U.S. territory. His department store was more than just a large retail space. It was a new concept for Manila. For the first time, a wide array of goods, from clothing and home goods to personal accessories, could be found under a single roof, presented in an organized, appealing manner. This innovation was revolutionary. It moved beyond the traditional model of specialized tiendas or open-air markets. Bok's department store introduced modern retail principles, fixed prices, organized departments, and a focus on the customer experience. It catered to the burgeoning middle and upper classes of Manila, who were eager to embrace American trends. The store became a destination, setting a precedent that the great Filipino retail empires of the future would follow. Bok's influence extended beyond his own business. By proving the viability of the department store model, he catalyzed the growth of the entire retail sector. He showed that there was a significant market for imported consumer goods and that a sophisticated retail environment could be highly profitable. His success paved the way for other entrepreneurs, leading to the vibrant, mall-centric consumer culture that defines the Philippines today. The legacy of Isaac Bok is in every department store and shopping mall across the archipelago. He was a visionary who understood that commerce was about creating experiences and shaping lifestyles. While his name may not be as widely remembered as those who followed in his footsteps, Isaac Bok was the trailblazer who first opened the doors to modern retail in the Philippines. Number 4. Leopold Kahn. Leopold Kahn was a man who embodied the fusion of commercial power and diplomatic influence in early 20th century Manila. Like the Levy brothers, he came from the Alsace region of France, arriving in the Philippines to seek his fortune. His journey, however, would see him rise to become not only a titan of industry, but also a significant political figure. Kahn was brought to the Philippines in 1909 to manage the Levy brothers' expanding empire. Under his leadership as president and general manager of Levy Hermanos Inc. and La Estrella del Norte, the company solidified its position as the premier retailer of luxury goods and modern technology. He was instrumental in branching out into automobiles and other products, keeping the company at the vanguard of Philippine commerce. One publication even credited him as the man who introduced into the islands the phonograph, cinematograph, bicycle, and the automobile, showcasing his central role in the company's celebrated innovations. But Kahn's influence wasn't confined to the boardroom. He became a prominent public figure, serving as the French consul general to the Philippines and as the president of the French Chamber of Commerce. In these roles, he was a bridge between the Philippines and Europe, facilitating diplomatic and commercial ties. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect of Kahn's life was his unique relationship with the Catholic Church. Though born a Jew who never converted, he was a great friend and benefactor to the Church. This friendship was so profound that in 1934, Archbishop O'Doherty of Manila awarded him the Order of Pope Pius IX, an incredibly rare honor for a non-Catholic. A letter to Time magazine at the time noted this extraordinary event, highlighting that Kahn had 12 Catholic children from his 2 marriages to Filipina mestizas, further weaving his family into the fabric of Filipino society. Leopold Kahn's legacy is one of multifaceted influence. He was a master businessman, a diplomat, and a unique cultural figure who bridged the worlds of Judaism and Catholicism. His story illustrates the remarkable way these Jewish pioneers integrated into and profoundly shaped the highest levels of Filipino society. He passed away in 1938, a revered figure in his adopted nation. Number 3. Emil Bakrosh. If one man could be called the father of the modern Jewish community in the Philippines, it would be Emil Bakrosh, a Belarusian Jewish immigrant who arrived in Manila in 1901 with just over $800. His story is a quintessential tale of rags-to-riches success and transformative vision. He is widely regarded as the first American Jew to permanently settle in the Philippines, and his impact was monumental. Bakrosh's journey began with a furniture company, but he had the foresight to see that the future of transportation was the automobile. He secured a franchise from the Ford Motor Company and established Bakrosh Motor Inc., the Philippines' first major car dealership. He didn't just sell cars, he popularized the idea of personal mobility, envisioning a Ford for every Filipino. His empire expanded from the ground to the sky. In 1930, Bakrosh founded the Philippine Aerial Taxi Corp, or PATCO, the country's first commercial airline. This pioneering company was later merged into what would become Philippine Airlines, making Bakrosh a foundational figure in the history of Asia's oldest commercial carrier. He was also appointed to a government committee that studied civil aviation, leading to the creation of the precursor to the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines. Beyond his business empire, he was the community's greatest benefactor. His success allowed him to be an exceptionally generous philanthropist, supporting both Jewish and Christian causes. He encouraged his extended family to move to the Philippines, fostering the growth of the Jewish community. His niece described life in Manila as distinctly colonial and elegant, a sumptuous civilized world. His most enduring philanthropic legacy was the construction of Temple Emil. Consecrated in 1924, it was the first synagogue in the Philippines and was named in his honor for his substantial financial contributions. He even provided a bus service to bring Jewish children from all over Manila to Sunday school. Bakrosh was also a man of significant political influence, a close friend of President Manuel Quezon. His magnificent home often served as a quiet venue for high-stakes political and business negotiations. During World War II, his mansion was first commandeered by the Japanese General Tomoyuki Yamashita and later became the residence of General Douglas MacArthur. Emil Bakrosh passed away in 1937, but his legacy is everywhere. He put the Philippines on wheels and in the air, and provided the institutional heart for the Jewish community. He was more than a businessman. He was a nation builder.
Number 2. The Levy brothers. The story of Philippine modernity can't be told without the story of the Levy brothers, Adolphe, Charles, and Raphael. Arriving in the 1870s as refugees from the Franco-Prussian War, they became the first permanent Jewish settlers of the modern era and laid the commercial groundwork for all who followed. Their story is one of astonishing foresight, as they systematically introduced the Philippines to the technologies that would define the 20th century. Their enterprise began modestly in Iloilo, but their ambition soon brought them to Manila's commercial heart, Escolta Street. There, they established the legendary store La Estrella del Norte, the Star of the North. The business, later named Levy Hermanos, quickly became the most prestigious retail establishment in the country. What made La Estrella del Norte iconic was its role as a gateway to the future. The Levy brothers weren't just shopkeepers. They were technological prophets. Consider the timeline of their introductions to the Philippines. In 1894, they brought in the first phonograph, introducing recorded sound to a captivated public. In that same year, they introduced the first bicycle. In 1904, they unveiled the first moving picture machine, giving Filipinos their first taste of cinema. And most dramatically, in 1904, they imported the first automobile ever seen in the archipelago. Each of these firsts was a cultural and commercial earthquake. La Estrella del Norte wasn't just a store, it was a museum of the future. Before Temple Emil was built, high holiday services were even held in its offices. The founder, Adolphe Levy, tragically died young in 1888. The business was then managed by his brothers and relatives like Charles Weil, and later the brilliant Leopold Kahn, ensuring its continued dominance. The legacy of the Levy brothers is, quite simply, the dawn of modern consumer and technological culture in the Philippines. They didn't just build a business, they shaped the aspirations of a nation. Every time a Filipino drives a car, watches a movie, or listens to recorded music, they are experiencing a world that the Levy brothers first introduced over a century ago. Their descendants remain in the Philippines to this day, a living link to the family that first showed the nation what was possible. Number 1. The Frater brothers. At the pinnacle of our list are 4 brothers from Cincinnati, Ohio, whose impact transcends business and enters the realm of profound humanitarian heroism. Alex, Philip, Herbert, and Morris Frater were not the wealthiest or the first Jewish family in the Philippines, but their actions during one of history's darkest moments saved approximately 1,300 human lives, making their legacy arguably the most significant of all. The Frater brothers owned a successful cigar business in Manila. They were passionate poker players, and their regular card games included some of the most powerful men in the Pacific: Philippine Commonwealth President Manuel L. Quezon, U.S. High Commissioner Paul MacNutt, and a then-colonel named Dwight D. Eisenhower. These poker games became the unlikely setting for a history-altering rescue plan. In 1937, the Fraters heard first-hand accounts of Nazi atrocities from Jewish refugees and realized they were in a unique position to help. They floated the idea during their card games, and what followed was a remarkable conspiracy of decency. President Quezon institutionalized an open-door policy, issuing Proclamation No. 173, which urged Filipinos to welcome refugees. He famously declared, "It is my hope that the people of the Philippines will have in the future every reason to be glad that when the time of need came, their country was found willing to extend a hand of welcome." Paul MacNutt, at great political risk, defied anti-Semitic sentiment in the U.S. State Department to help issue visas. The plan was audacious. The Frater brothers, working with the American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee, arranged for visas and transportation. They cleverly circumvented immigration quotas by advertising for skilled workers for their cigar factory. President Quezon stipulated that the refugees should not be a burden on the state, so the small Jewish community of Manila, led by the Fraters, took on the full financial responsibility. Quezon even offered a portion of his own estate in Marikina to house the refugees. Between 1937 and the Japanese invasion in 1941, the Frater brothers and their allies successfully rescued approximately 1,300 Jews from Europe. This was at a time when ships full of Jewish passengers were being turned away from American shores and sent back to their doom. The Philippines stood as a beacon of hope. The legacy of the Frater brothers is a powerful testament to the impact a few determined individuals can have. They leveraged their connections not for profit, but to save lives. Their story is a defining moment of moral clarity in Philippine history, a chapter of compassion honored with a monument in Israel. They built an empire, not of tobacco, but of hope. From the secret arrivals of Marranos fleeing the Inquisition to the defiant humanitarianism of the Commonwealth era, the story of the Jewish people in the Philippines is one of extraordinary resilience and innovation. The 10 families and figures we've explored are just windows into this larger saga. The Levy brothers and Leopold Kahn transformed the nation's commercial landscape. Emil Bachrach put the Philippines on wheels and in the air, while giving his community a spiritual home with Temple Emil. Isaac Bach pioneered modern retail, changing how an entire nation shopped. The Nutsorgs shaped the country's intellectual life through education and history. And families like the Hymans, Wiles, Keisners, and Eprams all played their vital roles as merchants, managers, caretakers, and survivors. Their collective story culminates in the heroic efforts of the Frater brothers, who alongside President Manuel L. Quezon and Paul MacNutt turned the Philippines into an unlikely sanctuary from the Holocaust. This open-door policy was the ultimate expression of the unique relationship that had developed between the Jewish newcomers and their Filipino hosts, one built on mutual respect and a shared sense of humanity. The legacies of these families are all around us. They exist in the foundations of the country's oldest airline, in the layout of its first department stores, and in the historical archives that document its past. They live on in the descendants who still call the Philippines home and in the spirit of enterprise and philanthropy they championed. This is a piece of Philippine history that has been hiding in the footnotes for too long. It's a story that challenges us to look deeper into the Filipino identity and to recognize the profound contributions of those who came as strangers and became family. They arrived seeking refuge and opportunity, and in return, they helped build the commercial and cultural foundations of the modern Philippine nation. Their story isn't just Jewish history, it's Philippine history, and it deserves to be remembered. If you found this hidden history as fascinating as we do, please help us bring more stories like this to light by hitting the like button and subscribing to our channel. The Philippines has countless stories of resilience and compassion. If you know of one, or if your own family has a story of migration and contribution, share it with us in the comments below. Thanks for watching.